and welcome back to our first panel session for this morning. Our first education panel looks at COVID-19 as a disruptor or catalyst of education reform and looks at how we can use that to reimagine our learning spaces. This summit will focus on the COVID-19 pandemic, which has put a halt to economic activity, added a distance in social interaction, and led to the closure of educational institutes worldwide. While it has disrupted learning in many ways, it has cascaded the online learning movement into execution and forced reevaluation and reform of our current education systems. So join us today as we explore how COVID-19 has acted both as a disruptor and a catalyst. To moderate this discussion, we have with us Ms. Chitra Ravi, founder and CEO of Chrysalis. Ms. Ravi is an educational visionary whose tryst with education began in 2001 as she founded Chrysalis, a state-of-the-art educational research organization with a vision to awaken the potential in every child. Under her leadership, Chrysalis has won the ET Now Game Changer Award. Ms. Ravi, thank you for being here with us today. Our first panelist for the evening is Ms. Radhika Bharat, Joint Vice Chairperson of the Shri Schools. Ms. Bharat is a pioneer in the domains of education, crafts, and social service, wherein she strives to create an impact in people's lives. The Shri schools under her guidance continue to stride ahead in the field of holistic education, maintaining the rank of a frontrunner. Ms. Bharat, an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Nitin Kashyap, Product Manager for Read Along as part of Google India. Mr. Kashyap leads product management for Read Along, Google's AI-powered speech-based reading tutor app for helping children to read. Having joined Google in 2015, he has a keen interest in bringing the powers and joys of Google and technology to those who need it the most. Mr. Kashyap, thank you for joining us today. Our fourth panelist for this discussion is Lieutenant Sanyukta Chaturvedi, Director for the Digital Equalizer Program at American India Foundation. Lieutenant Chaturvedi has diverse experience working with government, rural development, tourism, and the Indian Navy. She is currently working on the Digital Equalizer Program, which is focusing on closing the digital divide by bringing technology to 13 plus under-resourced government schools. Lieutenant Chaturvedi, thank you for joining us today. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Sunita Swaraj, Principal of the Heritage School in Vasant Kunj, Delhi. Dr. Sunita is a visionary and adept educationist. She has received several accolades, including the prestigious Socrates Award by Oxford, UK for her education. Ms. Swaraj, what an absolute pleasure to have you with us. And finally, our last panelist for this discussion is Ms. Shaheen Mistry, CEO and founder trustee for Teach for India. Ms. Mistry started Akansha when she was just 18, a foundation that provides children from low-income communities the kind of education that would maximize their potential. In 2008, she founded Teach for India with an audacious vision of providing an excellent education to all children across India. Ms. Mistry, a pleasure to have you with us today. Before we begin this discussion, we have certain instructions. Since we're using a virtual platform, you may experience a time lag. Secondly, the session recording will be shared after the summit, and the recording will be accessible. Please feel free to use the Q&A section. Each session is on a separate Zoom session, so please head to the auditorium section on the summit landing page to join your session. I would like to remind our panelists that this session will end at 10:50 p.m. There will be a buzzer 5 minutes before the session ends as a reminder. Ms. Ravi, over to you to moderate this discussion.
Thank you, Yamini. Very happy to be here. I'm just hoping that the session goes without the technical lags. People are able to join us seamlessly. It's my pleasure to moderate the session with some of the best minds, I would say, in education, schooling, technology, and perhaps where all these meet. And today it's become rightful that they meet and provide immense opportunities for true learning and impact to happen. So all of us have been working in these areas, and it is so important that, while COVID has thrust on some unique problems to us, it has also made us reflective, responsive, and I think in most cases, even innovative. And as educators, we realize that while safety and currently physical safety to to begin with is the first priority and of primary importance. We also know somewhere deep within that emotionally conducive environment for children, emotional safety in these very trying times, continuity in learning, all these comes a close second. And I think this panel, we are all responsible educators. We don't say this from a compliance or a syllabus completion point of view, but from the window of learning and perhaps what research has always talked about as a child's learning, that perspective. We've seen that social domain development, peer learning, not letting go, in my mind, the custodianship that our schools have held for a child's learning for so many years now. We cannot move away from that. And that is why this session becomes very, very important. While we are grappling with all these questions and, in our own minds, fighting the demands of priority, what comes first? Do we open schools? Do we don't? Do we stop learning? We are attempting to find progressive practices and innovative solutions. So this conversation, I must thank CSR Box and all the organizations behind for this opportunity and for putting up such a brilliant panel, I must say. The big challenge comes in 40 minutes. How do we get the best out of this best minds? And that's also a reminder for all of us to be as crisp and short, right? I'm going to start with the first round on challenges. May seem inauspicious to start with problems, but I firmly believe, and I'm sure we'll all agree, that a growth and the innermost growth and potentiality comes with challenges. So I want to flash my first question to Dr. Sunita on, this aspect of, as a school leader. We know that the brick and mortar, and I'm sure Dr. Sunita's school, Ms. Radhika's school would have created such wonderful ambiences and constructive, creative spaces. How do we, what are the major challenges when we are reimagining this learning in an online platform and space? I thought a quick thing from Dr. Sunita first to start with will be great to begin this discussion.
Thank you so much for giving me this very important question. It has been very important in my personal life as well. But adversity is something that has always given me a kick. And if I don't find challenges, I actually quit. So that is how I have always been. Now, trust me, at this point in time, I think the moment this came in, we were supposed to begin the session, the new session, in just a week's time. And that was just there on my face. And I said, what to do? Everybody said, ma'am, let's just postpone it. But I said, no, we can't really do that. Let's just sit and reflect and review. And we began the session on 18th, dot on that day. So it has been this particular COVID, it is important. What we did was we paused for a while and we reflected and we again took a direction that was, that was something that we wanted to take together as a team. Now, this wasn't easy. It has been a challenge for us, but education has never been easy. I mean, we do not have those teachers in India. When I ask in a class, when I ask children, who wants to become a teacher? And there's not even a one hand up. So that has been the challenge in our country. And education has never been easy. Change in education has not at all been easy. So this is something that we've done it, and for last 3 months there had been number of changes because nobody was really tuned for it. Neither the parents, nor the children, nobody. So we tried to get into it, and we've been able to make a difference. And it has really taken a while, but it is possible. I mean, instead of just halting it, we felt that it is important to move on.
So Sunita, Dr. Sunita, are you essentially harping on that one human mindset challenge? I mean, of quickly moving to a different orbit. Is that what you're highlighting?
So I would absolutely, I'm kind of a leader. I would jump in the pool and, learn to swim. So there are different kinds of leaders, but I am that kind and I did that. And it was just a mindset. I mean, definitely, as you said, that it is important for us to say that, okay, this is the situation. How do we can stop and we can keep, stopping and keep being there where we are. And the other way is, let's move on. I mean, life doesn't give you much time to, at times, life doesn't give you much time to really keep thinking. So that is how. Thank you.
I thank you for that. I want to move to Shaheen now. Shaheen, you have been singularly responsible, if that's not an exaggeration, of putting young people out there in the field, in different kinds of regions and public schools. And I personally know you and the work that your fellows do. What has been the biggest challenge for you? Because online, yes, we all leverage on it, but your core work is in the classroom, in the school. So can you tell us what your major challenges has been?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think a lot about truth and hope as two sides of a coin, and your question is very much around the truth. We work with low-income students, and so the biggest, most obvious challenge is just access. Less than 30% of my kids have access to hardware for a part of the day, and so that's a massive challenge. The second challenge is when COVID hit, suddenly just basic survival became a challenge. So while we're an education NGO, we suddenly overnight needed to become a relief NGO, and over the last few months have fed about 11,000 of our families. So a range of different challenges. I think the other side of that, which I just want to touch upon, is the incredible opportunity that suddenly a vulnerable or low-income student has equal access to an excellent education as a student from the Shri school, right? Like suddenly, Sunita's best math teacher could spend an hour a day teaching 2,000 Teach for India children. Suddenly, the Teach for India children have access to any idea, any human being, any teacher in the whole world. So while the challenges feel incredibly daunting, working in communities where social distancing isn't even possible a lot of times, so safety is an issue, food is an issue, access is an issue, parental supervision is an issue, but it feels like so worth navigating those challenges, because the upside is maybe this could be the digital equalizer.
Right. Great. You led me on to asking Radhika. I find her an extremely positive person in times of, like this. So Radhika, can you move a little? I mean, we all have been hearing this, right? Never waste a crisis. And I think we are all here together convening to give that hope. Shaheen touched upon truth and hope. So Radhika, can you touch upon, yes, some of the challenges, but then also some of the positivity and positive aspects you find despite what looks like, the world is ending kind of a scenario right now. Yeah.
Thank you, Chitra. I think, I think opportunities, challenges, they go hand in hand, right? Challenges were there. A Shri school is a privileged school. We were able to put into systems. But having said that, children are the same everywhere. I wear 3 different hats. We run a family foundation called the SRF Foundation, where we struggled to reach our children to provide them with education. And we have 280 odd schools. I work with the visually impaired, and my learning there was totally different because it's a boarding school. Our kids were back in their villages where they don't have access to devices. They don't have their braille. But having said that, Chitra, my positive attitude, like Shri just mentioned, the possibility of a Shriram school reaching out to somebody who's sitting in Uttarakhand or Bihar. And that's what the conversation in our schools have been. How can we convert these learnings so that we can reach out to many more kids? Opportunity of even the visually impaired. Nobody ever thought that we would be training our teachers on technology, right? Where teachers used to run away from the technology, they have so beautifully embraced it. And kudos to them. It hasn't been easy. And I know that the accessibility will remain an issue. We will have to work on it. But the willingness to learn that has come forward from the teachers has been phenomenal, and just not in India, it's all over the world. They've really held our children together. Mental health is one issue that I am so happy that people have started talking about it. It was something that nobody spoke about. In schools, we're talking about it. We're holding our children. We're holding our teachers as well, because they don't have the luxury to choose their Zoom calls, right? They have to be there in front of their computers at 8 o'clock to deliver their lessons and manage their home, manage their kids, manage their in-laws, and deliver the lessons. The stress levels that our teachers are going through is phenomenal. And, nobody's really talking about that. As a school, as a foundation, and as a part of Blind Relief, we are working on providing them with counseling sessions so that we hold our teachers, because if we don't hold them, they won't be able to hold our the children. Possibilities also of creativity, innovation. I mean, I can see a great body of work that will happen in India. Accessibility to lectures which are delivered by Harvard professors can be accessed by anybody in India. And I think it's a great time. We were always talking about education, how are we going to transform it? And here, guess what? The opportunity has come. So grab it. Don't lose sight. I really hope we don't lose sight. We continue to work and we continue to collaborate. What has also happened is that people are collaborating. There's willingness to share. There is a willingness to give. And I think that has been the biggest lesson that we all have learned, the ability to share and give. And I hope we continue to do that. And I'm very positive, I'm very hopeful, and I think it's a great space if we use it the right way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I always, such panelists not only throw the spotlight on reality, but, we are also able to see how leadership can move us from this space and transform us totally. I think today, EdTech has become the word, and we cannot talk about education without technology and technology giants. And we have Nitin representing Google here. My next question is to him on how has the technology world responded to this? I mean, what are the possibilities? Of course, I think the simplest thing is to say go live. And like we are here, can we just transact what we do in a class, across the laptops and devices? But Nitin, if you can throw up certain nuances of this possibility of how it can really complement education, especially in these times, that would be very, very important and essential for this audience. Nitin, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Chitra, for that question, and really delighted to be on such a stellar set of co-panelists here. I think coming from a technology point of view, right, at Google, one of our fundamental beliefs is technology alone is not sufficient and will never be able to improve education in itself, right? And it applies to other fields where technology can also be applied to as well. But it can be really a game changer in terms of a fundamental enabler of what we can do together, right? And when I look at that, the COVID-19 impact from that lens, I see it acting as a catalyst, or you can even call it a disruptor with a positive impact, right? And it has simultaneously shown us two things. One, what is the art of the possible, right? As well as second, simultaneously, what is the gap that still needs to be closed, right? So the two myths that it has clearly busted are one, I'm not sure what is the role of technology in education, right? Especially in schools. And by the way, when I say technology, you can consider even TV and part of it, not just digital and not just phones, right? And second, that education can only happen at schools, right? Both of those things are now, like, if you talk, nobody will question you on that if you say that, right? And now the level of discourse has actually moved to saying, oh yes, I know, and I believe it is the power, and this is the way we have to go, there's a potential, but hey, there are challenges, right? And in our minds, the three main challenges that still need a lot of work on are, first and foremost, equity and access. And that is not just a technology solution, it will have to be working with ecosystem. Second, is ease of use and training of technology itself. And that comes a lot to how we think about as edtech firms designing and the product process we follow, etc. And third is efficacy, outcomes, and net impact, right? Right now, we are not even, that is sort of left in the back. We're kind of saying, okay, let's just continue what we're doing. But that question also needs to be addressed, right? But overall, that's a good thing because that's moved the ecosystem, be it a premier school or a remote rural school or government or publishers or whoever, right? They're not getting caught in the why should we do it. They're all talking about how can we make it work better, right? And that is precisely as Google, and I believe as all edtech firms, that is the question that is front and center of our minds, right? I personally lead Read Along, which is, and I talk about more later as well, in terms of how we designed it from the principles of helping children learn to read, taking into account many of these challenges, right? With a mission for universal literacy. But I'm also part of the wider learning and education team in Google. And the three questions we always across, no matter what team, whether it is classroom, whether it is Meet, right? All of us constantly think about is where is the need that technology can most help with? Second is how do we design for impact, efficacy, and ease of use? And third is how do we work with partners and ecosystem to make sure we can have most equitable access, right? So I think that's the mental mindset with which technology companies and edtech have to approach this. And not just from a, hey, it's a new cool technology, there's an opportunity for making whatever right here. That will lead us to solving this better.
Thank you so much, Nitin. I think macro perspective, of course, it's not about the access and what fiber optics and all that can do in this country, but in terms of even looking at it from a giant tech company's perspective on where and how, and not necessarily now should we, that's, I think, opening up a lot of vistas. But I think the question in most of our minds is, how relevant is this when it comes to public schools or, the larger schools? Radhika also highlighted that a bit. Sanyukta is here. I'm sure she's had, American India Foundation has done a lot of work even in early years. And Sanyukta, can you highlight any specific initiative that can throw some light for the audience here on how has this at a micro level, at the ground level, how has it really equalized, if at all it has?
Thank you for the question, Chitra. And I agree with Shaheen when she talked about what is very important is when we are talking of the public school, there has to be equalization or digital equalization to the huge digital divide that is present. So we might have to take a step back and see. We have 1.5 million schools in the country, 70% of them are the public schools. When we look at the number of teachers, we have around 9 lakh teachers. They are the heart of the education ecosystem. So, for us, we have been working in equalizing this digital divide for the past 15 years. And the experience that have been, very interesting. And it's that till now, the education systems, organizations who have been working at the grassroots level have been looking at bringing technology to schools. So it has been creating technology ecosystem within the school environment. What has opened up in the past 3 months is a very important, aspect that we have to move out technology from in-school solutions to out-school, opportunities. The other important aspects that we have to look at is the beneficiaries, who are the children who come to these public schools. They have different learning ecosystems in the current situation. So it becomes very important for us to look at, providing solution for children who have high-tech support at home, which when we're talking of the public, schools and the government schools, the 12 states where we are working will be minuscule, very small percentage, hardly 2 to 3%. The second, segment that has to be addressed is the children who have low-tech support at home. So here, as Nitin rightly said, when we're talking of technology, as a program, we have, tried strengthening the 4 pillars of tech education. If you look at tech education, one important pillar becomes the technology element, the hardware, which in most of the schools, in the schools that way we've been working in, 13,000 plus schools, it has been provided. Government has also done a lot of work in that. The second important pillar when we talk of tech education is content. So digital content, contextualized to the various state, scenarios to align to their curriculum becomes an important element. Now here, what is very important when we are looking at a school environment, you have the technology, you have the digital content, you have, you are able to deliver it. Moving it to a virtual situation, so this second pillar has to be critically looked at. There are many, edtech,
Anita, I just thought if you can focus on, what has perhaps your digital equalizer program done right now to fix that. I think you rightly pointed out that in school, there was some kind of a level playing field and a circle of influence that we could all bring by putting the hardware in place, putting the content. But if you can, in the next 45 seconds, tell us, I think that will be a big take home for the audience.
Right. The fourth important aspect, and I totally agree with you, is the humane touch, which is very important, whether it is the education in school or it is the virtual educations, that are the teachers. So we as a program, we as an organization have been working very closely with the teachers in terms of their training, their capacity building in techno-pedagogy. And in the past 3 months, what has been very important is bringing their learning levels up to digital virtual tools has become an interesting, challenge, as well as an opportunity for them to migrate and be engaged with the students. One of the points that is very important.
Sure. Continue.
One of the important point that, I would also like to bring out that as a program that we have been, doing in the past 3 months is engaging with the parents. So when engagement and trying to make them an equal contributor into the learning process of the students when they are at home has become a challenge as well as an opportunity.
Yeah, great. I think you hit upon the 2 stakeholders who are critical now. We have all as educators been focusing a lot more on teachers, and now the time has come to also move to parental empowerment.
Absolutely.
I can see that. I just thought I'll do one round quickly on, we all talk about learning outcomes, and when we look at it more as a product, I'm just putting it in a very, gross way, I would say. And then you have the developmental outcomes, the social, emotional, which is more the process of learning itself, right? Through collaboration. I want to understand, Dr. Sunita, from your own experience, how have you been able to manage with bringing that peer collaboration and those development of those domains by design, despite having the children not being in the comfort of a school, which can be designed. I just want Dr. Sunita to spend a few seconds on that, and then of course the others. Yeah.
Yes, Chitra. If I talk about the learning outcomes, that is something that has been our priority always. So in our school, we right from nursery to 12, the children sit in crews. They have their groups in the classroom and they learn collaboratively. They collaborate and they are the ones, and the teacher is more of a facilitator in the classroom. And the children have been learning. So this is something that I've been doing for the last 4 years now. And initially it was like children used to, turn their tables and sit straight and say, this is my zone. So that has come very handy to us. The very first question that came up from the teachers was, ma'am, would we be able to take up this kind of a crew work with our children virtually? And then we reflected and we sat and we spoke about it, and we've been doing it online as well. This has really come up very well, and children are, so we have this synchronous and asynchronous, wherein in the asynchronous, the children, they collaborate, they get back to their own peer, and then they list down certain questions and they come back to the class, wherein a teacher moderates and tries to bring out the right perspective. So that's how we've been dealing with it, and it is working. There are challenges definitely, like for our junior school, nursery per se. Those children don't understand how to do it, nursery and KG. So we had a meeting yesterday, and we were more inclined towards learning outcomes, because these children, these parents were requesting, can we have a class a little later? So it's all on the teacher's side. What is the teacher wanting to do? How is she comfortable? How can she really bring in that kind of an outcome? And she's now working in small crews with these children at different time, depending upon her time and the parents' time. So that's Great. How we try to bring it up.
Yeah, I think there are many small progressive practices that we need to really bring together. Shaheen, what is your idea of these nuances, softer aspects, especially with the larger, public school children? The home environment may not be necessarily as stimulating, though it may sound like we're generalizing. I mean, by design, they may not be. And it is across spectrums as well, right? I mean, the more endowed children may not necessarily, they may have busy parents who are on video calls through the day. So how do you really look at this shaping up, Shaheen, from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good question. I think one thing we have to remember as educators is we know what works in a great physical classroom, right? Like all of us on this panel know that strong relationships with kids, creating a culture of joy, these are things that work. What I feel we have to be careful about is just doing exactly what we did in a physical classroom in front of a camera. That's not going to work. I think we're going to need to think really purposefully, and as Sunita said, have a lot of dialogue, a lot of reflection with each other to understand how we take and hold what is sacred for children in this new medium. And I think for all of us, it's a very, very steep learning curve, which is why I loved Radhika's point around just collaboration and sharing is going to be make or break. What we've found is one of the biggest opportunities that this has opened up is actually kids learning from life. So irrespective of the family that you come from, suddenly we're seeing children interviewing their grandparents and learning from grandparents, and kids learning from cooking at home. And so it's very, very beautiful. It's taken learning from a classroom to life, which Nitin mentioned, which I think is one of the most significant shifts. So we talk about two shifts at Teach for India with blended learning. One is learning from a classroom to learning from life. And the second is what we call the Ubuntu shift, after the beautiful African concept, learning from one teacher to learning from anybody around me. So I think it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to take time, but very exciting.
Education is dynamic in that sense, except that we need to keep the robustness going, right? Radhika, any thoughts on, I want to move a little to the reopening of schools. One is, of course, like, sooner than later, I hope we all enjoy the cheers and laughter of children in the schools. What are some of the guidelines you think we should be really putting out there? And I would also look at the same thing from Nitin in terms of technology and its future once the school buildings open. Radhika?
So I can't wait for the schools to reopen. I think we all want it to happen, but to tell you the truth, I don't think we in school we are even talking about that right now. I don't think Shriram's school or anybody will open a school till we feel it's absolutely safe for the kids. But the future of a school when it opens would be, like I mentioned before, that our teachers are no longer going to be content hubs. They are going to be mentors, they're going to be coaches. Schools will become a space where you come for socializing, for co-curricular activities, for teamwork, for, other softer skills. But content will be available. So a hybrid model is what is going to happen, especially in the senior classes. Junior schools, of course, it will be different. So, I see elementary school running in a very different way from, a grade 1 to a grade 5 running in a very different way, a middle school running in a very different, and senior school totally different, because senior kids are loving, and I have to say that it's working at Shriram schools and most other schools, they're loving the creativity. They embrace technology a lot faster. And the kind of creative work they are creating with, collaboration and, recording a news thing. And, so I feel it's going to be different. I also feel schools will have to play a very big role, and schools like ours, which are fortunate to support other schools which are underprivileged. And I think that shift must happen. I think it's a great opportunity. I remember when my mother-in-law started the school, we used to have Vidya School, which used to come to our school every afternoon. And I think those models are very, very critical. I think we really created something wonderful out there. And, I think, I'll keep saying it and I'll always say it, collaboration, sharing is going to be the new way all schools are going to function. And we must embrace that and adopt schools. I feel that model of adoption of a school and collaborating is something we must look at. And I think schools will open with joys of children and fingers crossed. And one more thing, I think teacher training will be the next big thing. We've been talking about it, but investing in your teachers is critical now, and it goes for every school. We have to invest in their learning, and if we don't, we are going to again slip down from where we were. So if you want the upward graph, teacher training is one thing that we must focus on.
Yeah, I think Shaheen also spelled out here so beautifully, all our worry is, and what we should all guard against is the same mistakes that are perhaps happening in the larger school scenario of rote learning in class does not just get across into the online space. And, we see that this is actually providing opportunities for so many beautiful things. Like Radhika says, can teachers move to become coaches and mentors? And, can we really flip the role of the school? And that is where a hybrid learning, again, these terms should not be used lightly, as I've always felt educational eras bring in new terms and then it becomes ubiquitous without understanding the true spirit of the word. Nitin, from your point of view, is technology gearing up for that? Again, it can just become a window to pass on the same old mistakes that we perhaps are doing via the fiber optics. So I would like your take on that. I'm sure we'll get reminders now from the organizers that we are nearing the end. But yeah, Nitin, quickly.
So I'll keep it brief. No, so I think I couldn't agree more with Radhika ji and all the other panelists here. The future is going to be hybrid. We should look at building on the strengths, mutual complementary strengths. There are hugely complementary strengths. There are things that only physical contact and personal touch and social can do, which technology should not even try to replace, right? But there are stuff that technology can really take all the burden away from and can automate assessments much better, can make reading and collaboration much more fun and game-like and engaging, right? And that's where technology should focus on, literally complementing this together. And that's where I would love to collaborate with to make this happen.
Yeah. I think we are all dreaming of, a very different era coming out, emerging out of the pupa called COVID, right? I mean, the struggle is there right now, but I think, I call my organization Chrysalis for that reason, that, through this nutrition comes out the beautiful butterfly, and that is what we are all looking at. I think there are still a lot of questions in the chat and in our minds about equity, about access. I come with the philosophy, and I would like some last remarks from any of you here, that there are some things we can influence in the positions that we hold. I mean, it can be an educational entrepreneur, or school leadership, or technology, and all that we bring together, even in this small panel. And there are some things that we need to, as recommendations, put out to people who can influence, right? I mean, to me, the macro aspects of every village, there are questions on, what happens when villages do not have access. Sometimes I feel this is the time to create certain proof of concepts and then take it to scale. I just thought I must end the next 3 minutes with a quick round, a minute each, or perhaps 45 seconds each on this. What is it that you think we should be focusing on right now, without worrying about the 100% things that we should be dreaming rightfully about? Shaheen, Sunita?
Yeah. So I feel, Chitra, we should be looking at more of building a connecting with people, looking at mental health, meaningfully engaging with other learners, our parents, all the stakeholders.
Okay,
and
okay.
whatever
So you're talking about connection, establishing connections in the best way. Shaheen, Radhika, Sanyukta, Nitin, I'd like 40 seconds from each one of you. I mean, I think this is just to know what your intuitive mind says right now.
I think for me and for schools that I work for and institutions, I think our focus right now is on the well-being of our children and our teachers. I think that's very critical. This has just gone on for very long, and it is taking a toll. And I think there is nothing more important really than well-being, and I think that needs to be taken care of, providing them support. And our children are very anxious, especially the older classes. It's a future that they don't know, and there is anxiety. So I think as schools, as responsible educators, I think focusing on well-being is far more critical than even delivering the content at the moment. So that would be my personal view.
And I think you also pointed out the investment we need to make right now on training and well-being of teachers as well. Shaheen and Sanyukta, any thoughts?
I just wanted to quickly share. I mean, firstly, very heartened to see in the chat box so many thoughts and concerns around equity. And my belief is we just have to not stop until we reach every single child, and we have to think of that at many different levels. I put a little nudge in the chat window. As individuals, what can we do, right? We can provide access to the kids around us that don't have access. As governments, it is absolutely possible for governments to be giving out tablets in the way that they give out textbooks over time. So I think let's dream big and not let access come in the way, and also build value in communities for blended learning, so that like families save up money for a wedding, they start saving up money for a device because they know that it can actually change their child's life.
Yeah,
I totally agree, what all of us have shared. What is very important is that the teachers have worked, in the past 3 months. Building the capacity of the teachers is very, very important. And it is not only on technology, because, there are many children who are getting left out. So building that capacity of reaching out to all students in all forms is very important. And we would also have to understand is that each state would have a slightly different model. So aligning with the state at the school level, at the district level, as well as the state level, and working alongside with them and the teachers and hand holdings, and then accelerating whatever small pilot or prototype that is worked out and scaling it up. So there would be small success stories which would be coming out in the next couple of months that could be replicated across, the schools that we are working.
Nitin, I think you have the last word.
No, I'd like to end with, I think, a book that I read called Daring Greatly, right? Which is basically like, this is an opportunity for us to dare, not be burdened by what has happened in the past or what is not possible. A lot of problems to solve, equity access, training are by no means not solved problems, but let's not let it come in the way of thinking big and giving it our best shot.
Thank you. I think, like I said, I'm sure there are questions in all our minds, but the idea of this panel is to see and hear voices that really has done and it cares. I think more than about even what we have done, perhaps that care that we all bring in with a very, very, with that inner reservoir of strength called hope, positivity. That's what we need to be hearing through this period of challenge to the entire world. It's been my absolute pleasure, and thank you so much. Look forward to more such interactions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chitra.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.